If you don't treat me nicely, Mommy and Daddy won't help you anymore." 6-year-old Aaron stood with a sealed envelope clutched in his tiny hand, looking straight at his grandmother. He lifted the envelope slightly as he spoke. Everything stopped. Forks froze in midair. The cheerful Christmas music faded into the background like a distant echo. My mother forced a tight, confused smile, as if assuming it was a joke. But when she opened the envelope, she didn't even smile. She turned pale. Everyone rushed over to see what was inside. But I already knew. My husband Douglas and I had prepared that envelope weeks ago. We'd planned it as a last resort. And today, that day had come. It was the annual family gathering at my parents' house. Just a few hours earlier, we had still held onto a tiny hope that this year, maybe things would be different. But the moment we stepped through the front door, that hope vanished. In the living room were my sister Christina and her almost 1-year-old daughter, Madison. A massive Christmas tree stood in the corner, piled high with wrapped presents. But it was obvious nearly all of them were for Madison. None had Aaron's name on them. As soon as my mother greeted us at the door, she rushed over to Madison and said cheerfully, "Madison, Santa brought you so many presents today." To Aaron, she simply said, "Hi," barely making eye contact. The first real blow came during the family photo. "Okay, everyone, let's take a picture together," my mom called out. Naturally, Madison was placed front and center. Christina held her, flanked by our parents on either side. Aaron was shuffled to the edge, nearly cut out of the frame. "Aaron, you're blocking Madison. Step back a little," my mother instructed. I saw Aaron's face darken. Even during meal preparations, the favoritism only grew more blatant. My mother carefully heated homemade baby food for Madison and served it in a special dish. Aaron got bread and soup. "This should be enough for you. The adult food is too spicy anyway," she said dismissively. At dinner, the conversation revolved entirely around Madison. "She's turning 1 soon. She's eating solids so well. She said Mama yesterday." When Aaron tried to share something new he'd learned at school, my mother interrupted him, saying, "Hold on, look at Madison's adorable little gestures." My father added, "Madison is such a smart girl," completely ignoring Aaron's presence. What hurt even more came during snack time. "This is Madison's first Christmas cake," my mom declared, presenting a specially made mini cake just for the baby. Everyone snapped photos as Madison grabbed it with her hands, cheering, "So cute." Meanwhile, Aaron sat alone, quietly eating a plain slice of regular cake. No one looked his way. The most painful moment came during the gift exchange. My father, wearing a Santa hat, began handing out presents. "Let's start with our little angel, Madison." He beamed, giving her an expensive educational toy set, an adorable dress, and an envelope stuffed with cash for her future. Christina teared up with gratitude. "Mom, Dad, thank you," she said again and again. Then came gifts for Christina herself, baby supplies, store vouchers, and kind words. Raising a child is tough. "You're doing great." Aaron waited with a mix of hope and anxiety. Finally, it was his turn. My father handed him a small bag, clearly thrown together last minute. Inside was a cheap notebook and pencil set, probably from a dollar store. The price sticker was half peeled off. My father added flatly, "Study hard, Aaron." Aaron took the gift and whispered, "Thank you. though disappointment filled his voice. Still, at 6 years old, he knew better than to complain. He said nothing. He just sat in the corner, quietly watching as everyone doted on Madison. Douglas and I exchanged glances. From the look on his face, I knew he was thinking the same thing. This was enough. Aaron also understood the situation. He quietly pulled out the envelope we had prepared in advance. Just as my mother said, "What a lovely Christmas this was," Aaron stood up. His small back straightened with a resolve far beyond his years. More than anyone, he understood how invisible he had been made to feel. "Grandma, Grandpa," he said. Everyone in the room turned to look at him. "If you don't treat me nicely, Mommy and Daddy won't help you anymore." In that instant, the air turned to ice. My mother looked confused and asked, "What are you talking about?" My father chuckled nervously. "He's just a kid. He doesn't know what he's saying." But when Aaron handed them the envelope, the smile vanished. As they began to read the letter, my mother's face drained of color. My father, reading over her shoulder, was struck speechless. The truth was, Douglas and I had far more influence over my parents than they liked to admit. 3 years ago, my father was forced into early retirement due to health issues. Their mortgage became unmanageable. Without hesitation, we offered to help, sending them $1,500 every month. This financial support allowed them to maintain a stable life. And now, ironically, that same support had become our final card to protect our son. On the day Douglas and I sat down to plan our last resort, we knew exactly what we had to do. Douglas went to the bank to ask about halting the mortgage payments. Since the mortgage was under our name, the process was straightforward. Then, together, we drafted a letter to my parents, a letter that would serve as our final position. We chose our words carefully, not emotional but firm and precise. If you are reading this letter, it means you have once again dismissed Aaron. We believe our son has the right to feel loved and included in this family. Sadly, attempts to resolve this through conversation have failed. Unless Aaron is treated equally, we will suspend all financial support and reassess our relationship. We enclosed copies of our bank statements, 3 years of monthly transfers. $1,500 per month, totaling $18,000 per year, $54,000 over 3 years. It was not a trivial sum. Without that support, their lifestyle would drastically change. We felt conflicted about using this as leverage. But to protect Aaron, it was necessary. The most important part was to explain everything to Aaron. For a 6-year-old, the idea of changing his relationship with his grandparents was a big deal. We told him, in words he could understand. When Grandma and Grandpa don't treat you kindly, Mommy and Daddy will protect you. He looked uncertain at first, but in the end he said quietly, "I'll do my best." We sealed the letter, the transfer records, and a mortgage suspension notice in an envelope. Then we told Aaron, "If you feel like they don't care about you, it's okay to give them this." And now, that moment had arrived. Aaron said softly, "I'm part of the family too, right? You love me too, don't you?" His words pierced every heart in the room. A 6-year-old should never have to question his worth to his own family. We were painfully aware of the responsibility we bore for letting it come to this. After Aaron handed over the envelope, the room fell into a heavy silence. But it didn't last. My mother suddenly stood up, her voice trembling with rage. "How dare you?" She was trembled. "You're using a 6-year-old to threaten us." My father joined in, outraged. "This is blackmail. You're trying to control our behavior with money." Tears welled in my mother's eyes. "We love both our grandchildren equally. This is all in your heads." But we had had enough. Douglas stood up calmly and said, "Mother, Father, we never meant to threaten you. We just want our son to feel like he belongs in this family." I added, "If you really love him equally, then take a moment to reflect on today's gift exchange." What began as natural care for a new mother slowly morphed into something else, favoritism that never faded. Christina looked flustered. "I didn't mean it that way, okay? Madison's still just a baby." I shook my head. We waited a year hoping things would change. But they didn't. If anything, they got worse. My father burst out, "You're an ungrateful daughter. After everything we've done for you." Douglas remained composed and said, "We are grateful you raised her. That's why we've supported you all this time. But this has nothing to do with gratitude. This is about our son's dignity." The truth is, this situation began over a year ago on the day Christina gave birth to Madison. At first, we celebrated the new life together. My mother visited the hospital daily and doted on Christina. It made sense. Childbirth is tough, and mothers should support their daughters. But it didn't take long for us to realize that what was meant to be temporary special treatment had quietly become the new norm. Before Madison's birth, Aaron was always warmly welcomed. My mother used to bake his favorite cookies. My father bought him new storybooks. They asked about his school and listened with interest. For 5 years, he was cherished as their first grandchild. But everything changed after Madison arrived. The first red flag came on his birthday. For his 6th birthday, my mother gave him a tiny notebook worth maybe $5. Meanwhile, 3-month-old Madison had received an expensive baby clothing set and a piggy bank containing $100. "Babies don't really need money," I gently pointed out. My mother replied, "It's for her future," and looked at me as if I were being petty or jealous. But this wasn't just a one-time thing. Using Madison's still so little as an excuse, my parents began going out more frequently with only Christina's family. One day, Aaron had come over, hoping to go on an outing with his grandparents. Instead, he stood by the window and silently watched their car pull away. Seeing my once joyful son quietly staring at the empty driveway of the house he used to love broke my heart. The signs leading up to Christmas were already clear by Thanksgiving in November. During the annual family photo, my mother said, "Let's take a family picture," but repeatedly took shots centered on Madison, excluding Aaron altogether. The only photo with Aaron in it was one I had to beg for. Even then, Aaron appeared as a tiny figure in the corner. The disparity in gifts grew worse by the day. Every time my mother returned from shopping, she brought back new toys or clothes for Madison. Aaron? He'd be handed a pencil or notebook for school, if he got anything at all. When I said, "Could you maybe get something for Aaron too?" her excuse was always the same: "He's older now. He needs experiences, not things." What hurt the most was how Aaron began to change. He used to get excited to visit his grandparents. But gradually he stopped wanting to go. "Can I just stay home and play with you, Mommy?" he'd say. And when we brought him anyway, he would quietly read books in a corner the entire time. As a parent, I broke my heart to watch my once lively and cheerful son turn into a quiet, subdued version of himself in front of his grandparents. Over the past year, Erin had become virtually invisible. Family gatherings were filled with talk of Madison, her first smile, her first time rolling over, her first bite of solid food. No one asked about Erin's school, his achievement, or how he was feeling. Douglas and I knew we couldn't let this continue. The turning point came on a rainy night, after Erin had gone to bed. Sitting across from each other at the kitchen table, we finally had the conversation we'd both been avoiding. Through tears, I told Douglas everything: how our son was being treated, the constant comparisons, the emotional neglect. Douglas listened silently. When I finished, he let out a long sigh. "I've noticed too. But they're your parents." I didn't know how to bring it up. Douglas suggested a step-by-step approach. "Let's talk to your parents directly first. If nothing changes, then we'll go with the last resort," he said. And so we began preparing a plan in case things didn't improve. This wasn't a decision we made lightly. But when we thought about Erin's emotional health and his developing sense of self-worth, we realized we had no choice. That's how this plan came to be. We wrestled with the idea of involving Erin. It was a heavy burden for a child. But then, one day he said to us, "I want Grandma and Grandpa to know how I feel." And with that, I knew we had to trust him. Even then, part of me hoped that day would never come. So before taking action, we tried speaking with my parents directly. I wanted to believe they might understand Erin's feelings just a little. I called my mother and gently explained. "Erin hasn't wanted to visit lately," I began. She dismissed it immediately. "Kids are fickle. It's normal." When I mentioned the disparities in gifts, she said, "Madison's still a baby. She needs more attention. Erin understands, I'm sure." Talking to my father yielded the same result. "You two are overthinking it," he said. "We love both our grandchildren equally." Even as I gave concrete examples, all I got were excuses. Well, maybe it looked that way, but it wasn't intentional. Still, I couldn't let go of the hope that, by expressing Erin's feelings, something might change. Then today happened. Watching how they treated Erin at the Christmas party, I finally understood they hadn't understood anything at all. When my father and Christina began arguing against the letter, Erin squeezed my hand and asked in a small voice, "Mommy, did I say something wrong?" I held him close and whispered, "No, sweetheart. You did something incredibly brave." Hearing this, my mother exploded again. "You've brainwashed him. You're making us look like villains." The conversation went in circles. My parents kept justifying themselves. We kept laying out the facts. After nearly 30 minutes, Douglas stood and said calmly, "That's enough. We're going home." He reached for Erin's hand and gently added, "Let's get your things." As we gathered our belongings, my mother cried out in protest. "Are you really going to cut us off? Do you know how hard that will make things for us?" But Douglas didn't even turn around. He simply replied, "Do you know how badly you've hurt Erin?" On the way to the car, Erin looked up at us and said, "Mommy, I'm not sad, because you and Daddy protected me." And in that moment, I knew we had made the right choice. The following weeks were, as expected, filled with turmoil. We received calls from my parents every single day. "What have you done? You're unbelievably ungrateful. Do you have any idea how much we've done for you?" My mother's voice was shaking. She was clearly crying. To use Aaron to threaten us? That's the lowest thing a parent could do. What did you put in that poor boy's head? I replied calmly. Mom, we didn't put anything in his head. He simply expressed what he felt. But she wouldn't listen. You brainwashed him. The next morning at 6 a.m., the phone rang again. This time it was my father. The bank called me. Are you really cutting us off? This has to be a joke. His voice was filled with both anger and panic. I can't cover this month's mortgage. Are you really going to leave your parents out on the street? Douglas picked up the phone. Father, we didn't make this decision lightly. But the damage done to Aaron's heart can't be undone. So now adults are supposed to bow to the whims of a 6-year-old. My father was shouting, but Douglas remained composed. This isn't about whims. He's simply asking for the dignity every person deserves. Then came my mother's tearful plea. Please, even just half of what you used to send, anything. Her voice, once domineering, now sounded defeated and desperate. Mom, this isn't about the money. It's about how Aaron is treated, I explained. She responded, okay, I'll make sure he gets better presents next time. But I shook my head. It's not about the presents. Her voice cracked with resignation and fatigue. Then I don't know anymore. What am I supposed to do? I answered gently. Start by offering Aaron a sincere apology. And then show us through your actions that you really mean it. There was a pause. Then my mother muttered under her breath. Apologize to a 6-year-old? That single sentence told me everything I needed to know. She still didn't understand that dignity isn't tied to age, and that when you hurt someone, you owe them an apology, no matter how old they are. So we continued withholding our financial support and decided to cut off contact with my parents, at least for the time being. 6 months after we cut them off, Christina called me with some shocking news. Hey, things are really bad with Mom and Dad. Her voice was grave. They can't keep up with the mortgage. They've been trying to negotiate with the bank, but it's not looking good. Without the $1,500 a month we'd been sending, their financial situation had collapsed. They were trying to get by on savings and whatever my mother made from her part-time job, but it wasn't enough. Dad looks like he's aged 10 years. He flips through job listings every day, trying to find part-time work. I felt conflicted. Hearing about their struggles didn't exactly make me happy. But when I thought about the pain they had caused Aaron, I couldn't bring myself to start supporting them again, not yet. I asked, do they even understand what they did to Aaron? Christina's response came hesitantly. Well, honestly, things are tense even with Madison now. Her voice softened. Mom used to bring her new toys almost every week. Now she just says, we don't have the money. And she seems more irritated when she's taking care of her. That shocked me. The same mother who once doted on Madison endlessly was now snapping because of financial pressure. Christina sounded exhausted. She keeps saying, this is all your sister's fault, every single day. And Dad's so stressed trying to find part-time work that he's constantly on edge. The more I listened, the more I realized just how much my parents had changed. Now when Madison cries, Mom says, be quiet, and instead of worrying, she just gets irritated. She even mutters, is there something wrong with this child? Her voice trembled. She used to say Madison's cries were angelic, Now it's like she's changed completely. I've decided to start distancing myself from them too. I was stunned. Was my mother's love for Madison only possible when money was abundant? She didn't love Madison. She loved the idea of her when it was easy to love her, I said aloud. But Christina seemed to feel the same. Yeah, I think I get it now. I understand why you were so upset about Aaron. Mom and Dad's love was conditional, wasn't it? And the change in our father was just as severe. Now in his 70s, he had been applying to grocery stores and security companies for work but kept getting turned away because of his age. He says every day that he feels useless. Like he doesn't have any pride left. They're even thinking of selling the house. Christina's voice was heavy. But with the mortgage still left, selling might not even cover the debt. I didn't know what to feel. It made me question all over again whether we had truly made the right decision. But then I remembered what Douglas had said to me, words that kept me grounded. We made the best decision we could to protect Aaron's heart. Your parents' financial troubles aren't our responsibility. They're problems they need to solve on their own. Sometimes it takes hardship for people to reflect on their actions. But when that realization comes too late, the cost can be steep. And my parents were learning that the hard way. Meanwhile, we began building new family traditions. This year we spent Christmas with Douglas's parents instead. They welcomed Aaron with open arms and made sure every plan revolved around him. For the first time in a long while, he wore a smile that came from deep within. We spent New Year's just the three of us. We cooked a feast together, went on a family walk, and simply enjoyed each other's company. How about we do this again next year? I asked. Aaron beamed. Yeah, let's. Through all of this, we started to truly reflect on what family means. We learned sometimes painfully that blood ties alone don't define a family. A year has passed now, and our family looks nothing like it did before. Aaron's bravery at the age of 6 didn't just shift our relationship with his grandparents. It transformed the way our family functions at its very core. Most importantly, Aaron no longer ties his self-worth to the approval of others. He used to ride an emotional roller coaster, seeking praise from his grandparents. Now, he celebrates his own growth without needing external validation. When he brings home good grades, scores a goal in soccer, or makes a new friend, his joy is pure, untainted by anyone else's opinion. Sometimes Aaron asks, "Do you think Grandma and Grandpa are doing okay?" We answer honestly, they're doing all right. But we're giving each other a little space right now. Then he'll say, "Maybe we'll make up one day. But it's okay, I have my family now." And in that simple sentence, I see his understanding, his acceptance. We haven't completely closed the door on reconciliation. But if that day ever comes, it will have to begin with my parents truly accepting Aaron and loving him as an equal. And more than anything, it will be Aaron's decision when and if he's ready. The greatest lesson we've learned through this experience is this: protecting your family's happiness sometimes means making painful, difficult choices. And that kind of courage isn't limited to adults. Even a 6-year-old child can stand up for what's right. Aaron's brave act opened the door to a new future for all of us. Today, our home is filled with laughter. Aaron's carefree smile, Douglas's calm warmth, and a peace in my own heart I hadn't felt in years. Maybe this sense of calm and connection is what we were searching for all along. And with the courage our 6-year-old son showed us, we'll keep moving forward together.